In this video, we're going to focus on rendering isometric drawings that you've gone through and completed. Otherwise, we'll work on perspective drawings as well. So this is a sort of solution we want in the end, and is common sort of presentation style within product design and industrial design. First of all, you're going to need to go to the OneNote and source the digital tone render. And you'll have to extract that for then the visual to appear like this, as I have compressed them into a zip folder. And because all the designs are different sizes, we're going to want to present them as an A4 document. So I'm going to go to File, New in Photoshop. Choose A4, whatever orientation is going to be best. So for this one that Mark's completed, landscape's going to be best. Resolution about 300, background's white, that's fine. And then I should be able to drag and drop the design into the scene. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to rotate it. See if I hover over any of the corners or any of these midpoints, it's going to do scale. If I hover a little bit further out, it's going to show the rotate tool. If I'm holding shift, it will spin around on 15-degree increments, so it's a bit easier to find that 90-degree. And then I'm going to scale it up so it fills the space. Once I'm happy with it, I'm just pressing enter, and so it's a little bit better. And first of all, I'm just going to go File, Save, or Save As. I'm just going to call this one Test 2. I'm playing on the desktop, and it's going to be a Photoshop file. As you can see, it's not allowing me to necessarily do anything, so I think it's a smart objects, which it is. So if this little icon's appearing in the layer tab, you can't do anything in terms of modifying. You need to rasterize the image. So I'm just going to rasterize that layer. And first of all, I'm going to color correct it. So I'm going to image, auto contrast, and it should just make it a little bit darker. And the second thing I'm going to go through and do is just remove any of these little blemishes or areas that the scanner hasn't scanned it very well. So on the toolbar on the left hand side here, you're going to see the spot healing tool, and what it does is sample the pixels surrounding area and then works out whatever's the unusual form, so I can go through and remove any of these little parts. And often it will be from the set square or the ruler that you've gone through and used. When it becomes a little bit more difficult, like this area, why isn't it allowing me to zoom in any further? There we go. I'm holding spacebar to move around the space. I don't want to capture too much of the side, so I'm not using that. The object, you can see it's sample that section, and so just remove any of those blemishes. With long lines, sometimes it doesn't work very well, and so for lines, the healing brush tool works better. So I'm going to sample a little bit larger. I'll click, it'll ask me, I'm going to have to sample it from an area that I want to sample it from. So I'm going to alt click there, and then I'm going to drag down, and you can see where it's sampling from. Now I'm happy with that presentation. I'm now going to add tone to color it in. So the background layer just has that. This is our drawing, so I'm going to rename, I'm just double clicking so I can rename that. I'm then going to create a new layer, and it will always appear on top, and I'm going to call that base coat. And so I am now going to, I can either use the paint bucket or the brush tool, and for this task I'm just going to use, I wouldn't go too dark because you'll lose your texture. I'm just going to use the paint bucket, and whoops, I'm selecting on one layer. Actually, I might be able to get away with just doing it on the one layer for this. So really light colours, so it's not too contrasting from the background in the background. And let's make it a little bit lighter. Placing in that there, and those buttons. Oops, make it a little bit darker so it's slightly different. That's a bit better. And so that's just providing a base coat. I've obviously missed a bit there, but that's not too bad. And now I am going to create a new layer. Base coat, actually I might not worry about. Remove that. And I'm going to call this shading, or shaded area. And for this one, I'm going to put in a slightly darker tone to that. So I've just sampled it using the eyedropper tool, and then I'm selecting a little bit darker. And then I'm going to use the paintbrush, make it quite large. Opacity at 93%, flow at about 45, and we want the edges quite soft, a little bit softer, and do a test run. That's better. And so on this layer, I'm going to draw where I want all the shaded areas to be. So actually I'll make it a little bit darker for this. So I'm going to draw down around here where I want it to be darker through that section and that section. And I'm not worried that I've missed the area, because what I can do is then go on the drawing, I'm making a selection for the background, and then on the area that I've just drawn, I'm pressing delete, so it's removing there. So I can do the same thing with that inner part of the band, and then deleting on the corresponding layer. And actually I've just missed that part there. Deleting the corresponding layer. And I'll spend a little bit more time, a little bit of a lighter colour. Brush size a little bit bigger, and there's going to be a little bit of a lightness there, probably a little bit of a dark section there, a little bit through there, a little bit on the top, and I'm reasonably happy with that. And same process, so on drawing I'm making a selection, and then on shaded area I'm deleting from that section. Miss that little section in the middle there. And so feel free to be selecting all at one time, deleting on that corresponding layer. And so you can build up, try and have 3 shades of grey. So there's a bit of variable there. And likewise I can also do a new layer, and I'm going to call this highlights. And on highlights, I'm going to go exactly opposite, so I'm going to make it white. Use brackets to make it a little bit lighter. Actually, I'll make it a little bit higher. And I'm going to do a quick one there. Actually needs to be a bit more intense. A bit too intense. A bit too intense. That's a bit better. a selection on the drawing, but removing it from the highlight. Have I drawn that on the wrong one? That works. The other thing with highlights, often you'll get a highlight right beside the shadowed area, so what we call like leading edges. And so the best way to do that is use the pen tool, change path to shape, change the color to white, make sure you have no fill, and change the pixels. That's really quite large at the moment, so probably around about 3. And so often there'll be a shadow that's, a highlight that wraps around that surface, and maybe down this leading edge here. And so I'm holding and clicking to get that curve if I need that. And even on these little sections here, you might get a leading edge. And so if I zoom out, it just gives it a little bit more contrast and variety to it. And there'll probably be a leading edge right there. These will be independent shapes. So now we can see we've got a whole lot of shapes and a whole lot of layers building up. Pretty happy with that. I could put a little bit more time and effort into it to get a little bit more darker sections. And then last of all, I just want to add this background shape. So I'm going to layer. If you're finding the textures are overwhelming with the, so that white goes all the way through, I can change that to multiply and the black section. Whoops, actually white's not going to work for that. Grey should though. It will bring the drawing back through. So I've just changed the shaded area to multiply, not the highlight. The highlight will probably disappear. And then base coat, I might call that background. So I can put in that background color.